Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Paige. It
Hi.
is not the last Monday of the month, but because the last Monday of May is Memorial Day, we figured we would do this on the actual last working Monday. So it's time for last Monday marketing chat.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a while, but I guess it's only been a month.
I
It's
know
actually been less than a month since it's not
it's
even the
been
end.
less than a month, but yeah, the time is if
Maybe
it
it just
scales.
feels like time is slow.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's going kind of wildly, but that's because as I was just saying, our kids finish up for the summer this
Yeah.
week, so it's definitely feeling like it's going fast. So talking of summer, that's what we thought we were going
Mhm.
to talk about today, is that in Paige's business for the last good few years, you have been prepping in the summer to make
Yeah,
fall a little more reasonable because we all know the scrabble that happens for fall photos. And if you don't get a head start on it, you're scrabbling even more than you are when it's busy season. So we
definitely.
thought we would talk about what you do in your business page and what things you could set up to make it a
Yeah.
little easier and potentially make more money in fall.
Yeah. And one thing that I wanted to say is depending on, who's watching this and like what their lives are like over the last several years, I used to do a lot more family sessions. And so it was a little bit easier almost when I was doing a lot of them because I didn't have to think about the calendar nearly as much because that's what I was doing. The bulk of my jobs were fall families. Whereas now it's shifted to I mostly do newborns and then I also do some families in the fall. And so there's a level of making sure that my calendar can handle it all because I'm not going to book my fall the same way as I did when I didn't really I'd only have a newborn here and there. So that was the first thing we were going to talk about is calendar and
Mhm.
scheduling because depending on what you have in your life and what's going on, all of that dictates what you can and cannot take, but also like how much money do you want to make? How hard
Yeah.
do you want to work? Do you want to burn
Well,
yourself out?
right, and think like being proactive about that so that it's really easy. I know you've been through this. I know I've been through it in my business. That if you get a little busy spell because of some time specific thing and people are asking if you can do it, it's really easy to want to say yes because you don't want to turn down the work. You're like, oh, if I say no,
Yeah.
but that's another Sat. And did I say yes to one the last Saturday? And I think I said yes to one on the Sunday. So now my entire weekend is going to be done. And is that the weekend we're supposed to be going away for that birthday party, or is that will I just say yes anyway and hope for the best?
Yeah.
So it's really easy to kind of reactively say yes because you don't want to turn down the money. And I think the goal that we want to talk about today is how can you be proactive, figure out how much money you want to make and what that really means. So, how did
Yeah.
you first think about this when you were planning out
Yeah.
your
Well, so
calendar?
I took this mastermind several years ago with this lady, and she taught us how to do this calendar that, like, I know how to do a calendar, but I liked the way that she approached it, where she would take the entire month and she'd print out all of it in like a block, so she'd have all the dates, all 30 days of this month and that month, and they all be in a row. And then she would go through and block out anything for school. Like field day, you're gonna go volunteer for field day. We were just talking about like you're gonna block that out because you're not gonna work that day. And like, oh, you have somebody's birthday, you're gonna block that out. You have a trip that you're taking, you block out all those days that you're like, absolutely not, cannot take anything that day off the table. So you block all those out with X's first. And then you look at what's left and you take an amount of vacation. So like she said she used to take like 4 weeks a year or something like that. So she'd block out the 4 weeks she wanted to do her vacations. And then she blocked out any time, like anything else that she needed to get off the schedule. And then she calculated how many days were left and how many sessions could she take on those days. And then how much money did she want to make for that year? Or she usually did it a year, but we're talking really about the fall, right? I think as I've adopted this calendar method in my own business, I tend to do better in quarters, like because stuff happens differently in the winter than it does
Mhm.
in the spring. And then I have different things with my kids' school and activities and stuff. So it works better for me to just do like a 3 or 4 month chunk. So
And you can
usually when I'm
definitely imagine for this, if it's your first time trying it, if you know you generally take photos for 6 weeks in the fall, just start with those 6 weeks. But
Yeah.
they're going to be in a couple of months, so get ready for it
Well,
now.
and I tend to do September, October, November, and December all together because, and here's why, because most families are not booking their fall families until mid-September to early October, at least here in Boise. And we get like our best colors and everything for that fall family thing that everybody wants, like the second or third week in October. So that's when I know I'm going to have the bulk of my requests is that chunk in October. But I also know that my labs stop getting things back to you basically at Thanksgiving. So, like if I order an album or something like that after Thanksgiving, it's not coming for Christmas. So, I have to think about all of those things. And if you do products and that's the bulk of your business, then you have to think about like how fast, like not only I need to take the pictures, but then if you do an in-person sales session, you're probably going to do that about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later. And then you have to edit their images if you do a soft proofing system like I do. And then you have to order the products and then they have to get here. So you have to kind of backtrack your way into when do I actually need to do this session in order to have all that happen. And so when I'm planning my fall and I'm talking to my clients about when to book their sessions, I'm trying to push them towards that earlier side of September, October, because they're not thinking about all those things that need to go into it. So they're like, you get all photographers know you get the random request like the second week in November, and they're like, "Hey, do you have any availability for Christmas cards?" And you're like, "No,
Not
like
anymore.
that was booked in July."
Yeah.
And so those are the things that we're talking about, thinking about now is like all that prep work that needs to go into the fall so that you can figure out what days you really have available. So I like to think this, okay, if I'm doing these 4 months, how much money do I need to make in those 4 months so that I can meet my goals throughout the year? And that's going to be different for every photographer. And then if I take that amount of money and I divide it by the amount of dates I have available, then like this is the minimum amount of money I would need to make per session in order to do that. But you don't want to take a session every single one of those dates. At least I don't. Maybe some people do. So I've seen some of those things where people do like, oh, I'm on my 45th session for the fall. And I'm like, no, I
Well, and
want
I
to do
think
12.
especially that backtracking, like figuring out the last date that you can submit images or give them to
Mhm.
whatever your version is. That might be what day, the last date you can hand clients images to know that they can comfortably then go and get them printed to send, even if they're doing the
Yeah.
printing themselves. But you have to then, if you say the last date I can take photos is X to give you a guarantee you can get Christmas photos out of it, then you have to know that you can do all the editing for all the things that you say
Yeah.
yes to in that time frame. It's not just one client, but if you've booked up then 15 people, can you actually get all their
Yeah.
images done in time?
Well, and that's a whole nother conversation we could have about being reliable to your clients and like
Yeah.
actually following through on your promises, particularly with things like a special timeline of, Christmas cards or something like that, holiday stuff where people are expecting it
Mhm.
and want it. And like if you promised that that album would be here by
Three
Christmas, it
days
better be here by
could
Christmas.
be like failure if you're 3 days late and then
Yes.
providing something, if you've worked right to the end of your deadline. So, yeah, getting
Yeah.
comfortable with what that deadline is and making whatever buffer you feel you need to add in there to comfortably guarantee that or not. Or maybe you say, if it's after this date, I will do my best, but I cannot guarantee images by then. But like if
Yeah.
someone's expectation is it's fall photos for Christmas cards, you have to make clear, are you going to be able to meet that, or are you not going to be able to meet that, or you
Yeah.
cannot guarantee it? So yeah, like get your
Yeah.
things right.
So I like to look at all the dates that I actually have available and then figure out how much money I want to make per session and then figure out how many sessions I actually want to like be comfortable with that. And that would tell me what I actually need to make per session. And then I look at my actual pricing and go, does it meet that? Like, am I going to meet my goal if I take this many sessions at this rate during this time period? And for me, it usually does because I've done this enough times that I know what I need to charge and I've made my pricing appropriate. But if you've never done that before, doing that math can like really be eye-opening of like, oh, I don't want to take 40 fall sessions. So if I want to make X amount of dollars, I actually need to double that rate
Mhm.
or whatever.
Or
So,
maybe you say, I cannot, like, I'm not willing to up my prices, but in which case, know that to make the goal, you're going to have to do 40 sessions or something. Or maybe you
yeah.
just say, maybe the goal I'm trying to meet this year, I'm just going to drop it down, but work next year on building my prices so I feel comfortable
Mhm.
offering that higher price at the next year round.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to tell you like basically what you can and can't book. And so then I usually take those dates and put them into my online gallery or my online CRM. And I have a booking system through there. And so I can put all those dates available and then allow people to choose their own date and like see everything that's available for the fall. Sometimes people will like kind of make it look like they're busier than they are. So, like, if you have a ton of availability and you're like, oh, I could do it anytime, you maybe don't want to like tell your clients that. So, strategically pick the dates that like actually work the best. You know, if you're like for me, like, I don't want to do photo shoots during the fall on Saturday nights
Hmm.
because we're always like watching football games and hanging out and we've got friends over. So I don't want to leave them to go do a photo shoot. I just don't want to. I
I
know
have
for
memories of you having to rush out of like my
oh,
kid's birthday
I
party
hate
right
it.
in the middle at the fun bit because you're like, I have to go
I
do a
know.
photo shoot now.
Well, it's like not only do you have to leave, but like you can't partake in any of the like libations or anything during because you're like, I gotta go do a photo shoot. So there's so many reasons why I don't want to do photos on
And some
Saturdays. But
people really might like to. You might say, I will
yeah.
take all my Saturdays off earlier and all of them after, and I'll book a couple of long weekends around it, and but in the middle I'll work them. But this is
Yeah.
again just being clear to yourself and being proactive. Don't like accidentally agree to like four
Well,
Saturday
okay,
nights in a
somebody,
row.
I can't remember if it was you and me talking or somebody said to me, you shouldn't say yes to anything that if you had to do it tomorrow, you wouldn't want to. And I was like, oh, there's a really interesting way of thinking about it because I do that all the time. We're like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And then it gets to that thing, and I'm like, oh, why did I say
Future
yes
page
to
is
this?
mad.
You know? So I'm like trying to keep that in my mind. Like, do I want to do this thing tomorrow? No, I do not. Therefore, I should say no.
Yeah. Well, and I think
I like
one of the things, so you just mentioned a CRM there, and for those of you who are maybe newer, if you don't know, a CRM is a client relationship management system. So that's things like Tavi, or is it Tavi? Is that the one that you
Yeah,
use?
that's what I use.
Or like 19 Hats, or like I use one called
I've
Moxie.
used
There's all
Jennifer.
different ones depending on what you do, and they
Yeah.
usually cost a monthly fee. And so, depending on where you are in your business, you may not be fully using a CRM. There are other ways around this you can do that are cheaper that you can just run for the 6 weeks or however long, 3 months. But I think
Yeah.
the one thing to remember about this is that if you publish a calendar with your availability, there's not then a back and forth. Someone doesn't come and say, could you do this on Saturday at 8? And you have to then decide if you're going to say yes or no, which as a people pleaser, I have a really hard time. I would rather let down future Jill than let down the client, and then I'll be annoyed
Yeah.
that I like said yes to the thing that I said yes to. But if you have published a site and then they just go and they look at the available time, there's not that constant back and forth on phone or email, which all add up. If that's over 40 clients, like it might just feel like 2 minutes, but it's 2 minutes times six for a client times 40 for those clients. Like that's a lot of hours you're adding up
Yeah.
over time. And they just pick the time that works for them. There's no back and forth. There's no them asking, could you do it at this time? Or there may still be some clients that ask those questions, but it's
Well,
going to drop that way down.
also, though, that's a really good point in that, like, so I generally don't like to do that for new clients because I want them to make sure that they understand like the way that I work, particularly because I am higher priced. I don't want somebody to be like, oh, it's $200 for everything. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
no. And I don't want somebody to sign up for something not understanding that. However, here's my asterisk. Almost all of my fall families are past clients.
Yeah.
So they've all worked with me before. They know how I do things. And they're like, oh, yeah, I want to get on Paige's calendar. Here's the link, jump on, pay your deposit. Great, we're good to go. And what we're going to talk about coming up is how those past clients are really like the bread and butter of like
Yes.
who you want to nurture here because they already know your business. So you can do things like this and save so much time.
So much time. Yeah.
So,
And so
yeah,
that's true. Like you may want to talk to someone about the calendar, like
prior
with
to
them,
just
maybe
sending
on
it.
a call and show it to them and explain all the implications of it. But having it set out where they pick out from your available times rather than them asking you to come on their available times allows you just to take control of your business a little bit more. Like if you think about it, when you go and see your tax accountant, or if you're going to see your hairstylist, generally like you don't get to dictate the time. You
Yeah.
tell you when they're available, which appointment would you like. And sometimes if you've started your photography business as a bit of a side hustle, that can feel hard, that kind of boundary, putting it in place, but it's one of those big step up that allows your business to be much more efficient. And usually it's a step in the process of your business becoming much more profitable as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just all around better for your mental health
Yes.
when you have a consistency to your schedule and like don't have to disrupt everything because you have this random shoot that's not at a time you would normally do. And so you have to rearrange things. And it's just like the day that I made like working hours, even though I could make whatever I want, the day that I like really put out, these are the
Mhm.
days that I work and this is my working hours was like life changing for
Yes.
me.
Yeah, I'm the
And
same. I
just
don't take
those boundaries.
calls. I don't take new client calls on Mondays or Fridays. And just knowing that whatever I'm going to come into on a Monday is something that I have control over, it like makes my Mondays so much more enjoyable. So
Yeah.
there's less of this Sunday scaries than I used to have, because I won't turn up and at 9 a.m. there's like some random new person
Yes.
who wants to talk to me on the phone. So yeah, and
Well, oh, and so here's another thing though that I want to say before I forget. That same lady that taught me the calendar system, her method was she had a week of shooting and then a week of editing and then a week of shooting and then a week of editing.
oh,
So she would have weeks where she knew she had no sessions at all. And I was
hmm
like, that's actually, if you want to, if you were like, oh, I have a lot of availability, I just want to let people choose, you could potentially do something like that where you decide, this is a shooting week, and I'm going to show that I have all this availability this week. But then next week, it's going to show I have no availability. And the week after, I'm going to have a ton again so that you can have those breaks to like, all right, I'm going to hunker down and edit this week and
yeah.
then, do all the things you need to do. So that's another
Or
option
like
there.
if you don't often have clients on a Monday because you've worked weekends, maybe you just don't ever allow an opportunity
Ever.
to book on a
Yeah.
Monday, and you treat that as catch up on editing day or whatever you need to do. The other thing I was going to say, for those of you who are interested in doing this without that you don't have a CRM in place, there are things like Calendly and a variety of different sites like that where you can connect up your website, and I think you can probably run them quite cheaply just for a few months. There's all Some of them are free, and then also you could even publish a Google Calendar for your business that people could just go
Okay.
look at your Google Calendar. Just make sure it's not all of your family events, but like you can make one specifically for your like a different thing and call it your business name, and then publish that so they can see the dates. It would be a little bit more work, but it takes it one step closer to the sense of you setting your business hours and being a business. And if you've not done any of that yet, you might find just by doing that, you will hold closer to the calendar and clients will hold closer to your ideal as well.
Yeah. So step one, figure out what dates you actually have available and when you want to work. And then step two, give those clients the ability to look at it and like either book it online or, be able to choose their spot, whatever, however you want to do it so that they can see what that availability
Yeah,
is.
because even if you don't have anything at the moment except your own personal Gmail, say, you
Yeah.
can send a link to your published calendar and say, here's my calendar, let me know which of those you want to book. They email you back with the slot that they like, and then you go and like close that slot out and fill it up with their appointment. You could do a
Mhm.
lot of these things manually that you can pay for a calendar to do, but especially if you can find like some of them are just a few bucks a month. And if you were just to run that for 3 months, it might be worth it than the amount of time it takes for the back and forth. So,
I will say too, the other thing is that like so many photographers when they're just getting started are so reluctant to like take a credit card or pay for anything. 'Cause they're like, oh, I can just take cash or check and then I don't have to pay that credit card fee. Just make your rates
mhm,
3% higher
just do
because
it.
then you get paid immediately. And
Yeah.
it's so much easier for someone like in the middle of the night, just pay with their credit card. It's a sleepy mom that's like, oh yeah. I gotta book this, and I have a 6 month old. I'm exhausted, but I do want to work with that photographer who took our newborn photos and they think about it at 2 a.m., don't make them like jump through all the hoops of
Yeah.
writing you a check. Like just let them put their credit card information in and book you immediately so that like you're paid. You're done.
Oh,
They're in.
and also, honestly, a lot of these CRMs, we mentioned a few, but there's loads of them. They quite often offer like a month free trial.
Yeah.
Fall, if you were really busy in fall, that would be a great time to test that system for free and watch how easy, because I think you only really understand how much less work is involved once you start bringing, you don't
Yeah.
even know money comes in. You just arrive at your desk the next morning and it shows you that payments have come in and been processed like that. And invoices have gone out, like all that kind of stuff is just amazing when you see it. So pick a
Yeah.
time when you're going to be busy so you maximize the use of something like that and maybe do a free trial in the fall.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that you're going to probably need more than just the free trial. So if you're going to do something like that, I would do it sooner than the fall so that you can have that time
Oh,
to
yeah,
like
that's true because it
set
will
it
have to
all up
follow
because
you
it
through.
can take a little bit to like get things organized.
That's true.
However, if you're, there is one called Use Session that's actually like super simple and you can set that one up like in a day. Like it's super fast. So that could be one that could potentially use. And we're going to talk about mini sessions in our June episode of last Monday, but those sort of things are great for that sort of
All
stuff. So
that
we'll
kind of
talk about
stuff.
that again later. But yeah, I think that some of those like really simple calendar options that can take a payment
Hmm.
are wonderful. Like the take the payment part is the one that
That's
you really want because you don't want somebody to block out a spot on your calendar
not
and
no.
then you're chasing them to actually get you to pay. And you're
Hmm.
like, I don't want to give up that spot because they wanted it, but they haven't paid for it yet. And then
And
it's a
other
nightmare.
people are
So
asking, and you don't have
yeah.
availability, but you're not really sure if that person's committed or not. So,
Okay.
talking
And then,
of that,
sorry,
people
go ahead.
wanting, I was just going to say, people wanting to know, like, should we get on to when you start telling clients that you have availability? When do you start advertising?
Yes. Well, I was going to say one last thing on calendars and scheduling and stuff is that like once they're full, don't take more.
Close
Like that's
it.
I think the biggest problem, the biggest like thing that people do wrong, photographers do wrong is they fill that calendar and then somebody comes along and wants that last minute and you say yes, don't say yes. Don't
Yeah.
do it to
Well,
yourself
and
because
that's
that
also, I think that's why calculating how much you'll make is important. If you've
yeah.
calculated out that if I do 20 sessions at X price, I'll make Y amount of money, I am good with that. That would be a great
Yeah.
goal for me. Then you know that when you've hit 20, you do not need to take any
Good.
more. You're going to make the amount of money that you wanted. And then remember that promise that you made about how much editing is on the back end of each workflow for each client that you're going to go through. You have
Yes.
calculated how long you need based on 20 clients. If you add another three clients in, are you going to risk breaking your promise to a whole load of people? And that's not fair
Yeah.
to them. So, like, only take it's so tempting to want to take it. But I think if you know your bottom line number, it's easier to say, I'm good. I don't need to take any more than this.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that we didn't mention when we were talking about how to figure out how many dates you have available. But it is really important to consider how long it does take you from start to
Mhm.
finish for someone's session because everybody knows it's not just the hour that you're there actually shooting with them. There's so much more to it. So you might technically have the ability to do 3 sessions in one day, and like do a morning and then two in the evening or something like that. But like, do you have the ability to actually turn those sessions over and not feel like a crazy person?
Right,
So
because
those,
those cannot all be done in a day. Three sets of whatever is involved to produce the images and send them to the client. That's all their own days you have to, or time that you have to work on it. So for sure,
yeah.
decide on
Yes.
that's why deciding your number, I think, really helps. So
Yeah.
yes, telling people about space, because I think you've been running this
Yes.
long enough in Boise, certainly, that you pretty much fill the calendar the way you would like every fall. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, we're usually booked most of the way from through fall, like by August. Like August is kind of like if I'm not booking August, I start to get worried. I'm like, oh shoot, what's going on? And so I do, like ramp up the marketing and stuff if it seems like it's a little bit slower than it has been. Like last year, every election year seems like it's always a nightmare. And especially because the election always happens like in the middle of the fall stuff.
Yes.
And so then you're like, everybody's always worried about money and all the things. And so last year, I remember having to push a little bit harder for those fall bookings. Um, but I always start talking about it right about now, like end of May, early June, because I want people to be aware of it. I want people to start thinking about it and like, with all things, they say that like a person has to see something 7 times, right? To like actually buy it. I think it's the same with photography stuff.
Mhm.
Like you're like, oh yeah, we should do that this year. Moving on. oh yeah, we should do that this year, moving on. And you forget about it enough times that like then you get the like last minute booking thing.
Mhm.
And we don't want that. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So I find that the earlier I talk about it and the more I talk about it, the easier it is to get those sessions booked. And so I always send an email to my newsletter really early in the season so that I can make sure that we've brought it up, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll start to talk about it on my socials, on Instagram and Facebook, and then I send another email a little while later, and I usually give that one like something about, my favorite places to take pictures this fall, or something that's like not just, hey, book a session, book a session, book a
Mhm.
session, because people get annoyed with that, and then they mark you as spam and they stop following you. So that's usually something that maybe they would want to read, or like something about kids in Boise in the fall, or something, something that's like a little bit more valuable than just book
But
this session.
I would also say, as a copywriter and like writing marketing, is that you're making them picture fall. So the problem is that unless it's your very solid clients who are type A, plan everything in their calendar 12 months in advance, in like I cannot picture fall. Like I'm just about to do field day for my kids for finishing up this grade. I can't picture them in next grade and what's happening in fall and Christmas cards for next year. So I
Yeah.
am not going to be booking right now. But there are some people who'll be like, oh my goodness, yes, we must get on Paige's calendar.
Well, and that's why, like, I do like to say in my first initial one, like, hey, I'm going to release these dates to you guys first,
Yeah.
since I'm so appreciative that you're on my newsletter. So that does get those type A's that are
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, yeah, I got to do that. They'll immediately book, which is always great because you're like, oh, okay, cool. That family, I always take pictures of them. All right, they're on my calendar. And I have a couple of families that I always, always take pictures of. I've done their photos like 8 years in a row, sort of a deal. And so if they don't show up that first month, I send personalized
Mhm.
emails to them and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that my fall calendar is open. I'd love to see you guys again this fall. Is there a good time that would work? Let's get you back on the calendar. And almost always that personalized email will get them to
Yeah.
book if they haven't already, or they'll respond and be like, oh, we moved away,
Right.
or,
There's a
like
reason.
give me some reason why they're not
Yeah.
booking. But the other thing that I always do is I do like to send those personalized emails to the families that were really good clients for their newborn shoots. That like we got along great, they were wonderful, maybe they spent a lot of money with me. Like there's all kinds of
They're
reasons.
your ideal clients. Like it was
They're
a
my ideal
nice and
clients for
easy,
whatever reason.
high value client.
Yeah. And so I always like to send them a personalized email too, and just let them know that my calendar is open and that I'd love to see them. And usually at the end of that, I'll say something like, I'd love to see how much, little Sammy's grown. Like, even if we don't book photos, like send me a snapshot or something
Yeah.
like that to like make them know that I'm not just sending it to
Not a
everyone.
bulk email. Yeah.
It's not a bulk email, even though it is, because we like templates, right? So
Yes.
like I'll write that email and then I'll adapt it to every client that I want to send it to. So
Well,
I
and I
don't.
think the other thing with marketing when you're not used to doing it is that you can be like, oh gosh, why would I send this in May? This feels terrible. But
Yeah,
for those clients who book you eight years in a row, and the type A's who really want it on their calendar, and the families who just had a great experience with you and would love for you to do it, but maybe didn't realize you did family photos, you're doing them a favor by pointing out that
yeah,
you have this thing that you think that they would want. And like so often, I think we feel like how, oh, I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to like be pushing the thing that I offer. But
yeah,
often those people are delighted. The people who you send the personal second email out to, maybe it got caught in their spam. Maybe they didn't see your newsletter and they would probably have felt terrible if they had
yeah.
missed the opportunity and your calendar was full.
Well, and that's a good point too, in that like I use text messaging and emails in conjunction with each other. And so a lot of times I will send that email and then a couple days later say, hey, I sent you an email about our fall bookings being open. I just wanted to make sure you got it. I'd love to see you guys on the calendar this year, or
Yeah.
something like that, where it's like super simple and easy. And like a lot of people will ignore it, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like the good clients won't, and they'll book. And the ones that really want to work with you will book. And another thing that I wanted to say about this is like, I'm talking about a newsletter. Like, if you don't have a newsletter and you're like, I don't have an email system and I don't have a big group to send it to. I'm sure you do have people. Like
Hmm.
even if you don't have, you know, a 5,000 person list that you're sending to all of your city, you have past clients, you have friends and family, you have, there's all kinds of people that you could work with that you're gonna be able to get that word out there to like say, hey, if you know anybody that
Right.
is having a baby or has a young family and would like fall family photos taken this year, my calendar's open, please share, stuff like that. Like you can send those personalized emails rather than the bulk one to get people to notice and know that hey, this stuff is available. We'd like to get you on our calendar.
And I think the other thing we talk a lot about, the reason why we love having workflows and templates is that it makes clients feel like they've had this really special experience, even if the reality is for you it's been automated. So
Yeah.
what you might find is that you have a client who you worked with and they loved you, and because you gave them this really great experience and they either can't afford your family photos or they're not getting them, but they want to keep supporting you. And if you send them the email that's like, hey, we worked together this year, I don't know if you're interested, but we do this. And if you're not, you can share. Like, I love to support other small businesses that I really like. Even if I cannot
Yeah.
support them financially, I will share that. If I loved somebody but I can't use them, I'll be like, hey, this is the photographer
Yeah.
we used. They were great. If anyone's interested, they've got some spaces open. So don't forget
Well,
that sometimes people want to support you that way.
yeah, and I think that that comes back to like if you ever do like portfolio building things or model calls and you do get those clients that maybe didn't spend as much money with you or they got something for free, a lot of times those do become bigger sessions. Like I just did a photo shoot last week for this family that they've come in and done like three, I think that we've done three shoots together now. And she always spends very, very little. But she's wonderful. She's so kind and her kids are great. And like I totally love working with families like hers, even though it's not a big moneymaker for
It's the
me.
biggest one. Yeah, yeah.
And she said, oh, hey, I just wanted to say, like, did you know that so and so was my friend? I sent them to you. And I was like, I had no idea that she had referred this family to me. And they spent 5 grand with me.
Yeah.
So like I didn't know that that was thanks to her, but she had shared the like two images she had bought from
Mhm.
me and said, "Oh, I love this photographer. Like if you need a photographer, go work with her." And then her friend reached out and said, "Oh yeah, who was that photographer?" And then they
A
came in and
great
spent a
tool. Yeah.
lot of money with
Yeah.
me. So you never know what connection is going to bring you
Mhm.
those ideal clients that are just wonderful. And like you said, like you're doing them a favor. You're not annoying them by saying, "Hey, I just wanted to see how you're doing. I'd
Well, and
love to work
it's really
again."
easy to skip an email if you're not interested, but I think we all know
Yeah,
that feeling of an email that comes in from a store you like or a product that you like, especially if it's like, oh, I was just thinking about buying a swimsuit and then something
yeah,
comes up. Like you like to get an email like that and check it out. And on other days you just delete it. I don't think unless you're sending like 6 emails a day, no one is going to be mad that your email
yeah,
turns up in their inbox like once or twice across the summer. So
yeah,
definitely, yeah, if you don't have like a CRM or anything set up, collect together a list of people you know, email them, ask if they'd be willing to share, put it on your personal Facebook page or your Instagram page, ask if anybody knows someone. You can put things in like Facebook groups, next door, different places where you could maybe find like to connect with the audience that you
yeah.
think might be interested. But
Well,
giving them that prompt before they come in at the last week of like October, like, oh goodness, we wanted shoots. Like, is anybody available for this? Like, just give them that little reminder in advance, and you'll find a lot of people will be glad to be sort of reminded and told, oh, this is the time to go get this done.
yeah. And I was gonna say this, I don't know what just made me think of this, but I have seen people on Instagram before where they'll say like fall mini sessions, come book or whatever, fall openings, come book. And then they don't have any information about where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And like people don't know. I just saw one this morning that was like this one lady on Threads, and she said, looking for a newborn and maternity photographer. And all these people had responded and said, where are you?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you're
so
just like,
unhelpful.
we don't know who you are. You're just this random person on the internet that's saying they need a newborn photographer. And so all these people were like, well, I'm in Illinois. I can
Yeah,
help you. I'm in Maine. I can help you.
I'm in Texas. Like, this is not. I'm in
Right.
Boise.
So when you're advertising anything, whether it's fall or, a special event, like you got to tell people where you are so
Yeah.
that, like, and you don't want to drive 4 hours away to do a session for somebody that booked you that lives in Salt Lake City and you live in Boise. Like,
Yeah.
no, you need to say Boise fall family shoots now available.
hmm And that also allows you, if you have some kind of CRM, usually what that connects to is not just your calendar, but some way of you providing a brochure or an introduction or an email or something that gives you the opportunity to explain a little bit about your process. So that they can get the sense of like a little bit about your pricing, possibly, like expectations, maybe some images and some kind of way to understand what type of photographer you are and what they're going to get for their
Yeah.
money.
Well, and
Um,
another thing that you could potentially do is send that email, like I was talking about, like, favorite places to shoot. Like you could send that with a past family session and be like, hey, there's this amazing sunflower field here. This is when it blooms. Look at this session I did there last year. It was so pretty. Like now opening dates for that particular thing,
mhm.
like so you can book like those specific locations
Mhm.
too,
Yeah,
based on your calendar. And
yeah.
I think that's a great way to get someone to go, oh, yeah, I want my picture taken there. Look how pretty those ones are that she took there. So, maybe we can do our family photos there too.
But knowing that there's actually only 2 weekends that you can do that, and then that
Yes.
window has gone,
Yeah,
allows you
that
then to go.
scarcity goes down. They're like, oh, yeah, they only bloom at the end of September, and these are the 2 dates that I have available. If you want a sunflower session, this is when we need to go.
Yeah.
Like people will book that. That
Mhm.
scarcity is big.
Yeah. And I think that's where, even if you have a lot of dates on your calendar, just the sending of the email that says, I always fill up in the fall. I always have people who email and ask if I can help, but the window has closed because it's too late for me to get them ready for their Christmas cards. Like, I don't want you to miss it.
Yeah.
This is the time to book if you want to be sure that you can secure a spot. Like, that kind of language can really, and it's not, as long as it's not a lie, as long as that's true, and it usually is true. And I'm sure almost all of you listening have had that experience where someone's asked and you're like, it's too late, or I'm too busy, or
Yeah.
if I did, I could take them now, but you won't get your photos back in time. Um, if you've ever had to deal with that, then you're not lying to say those things in a like, let's get you prepped early so you don't miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I
Oh,
think the more that you can do to provide that stuff for your clients and like provide those examples and provide the ability to book online and like make it super easy for them and only have those, the dates that are available and they can see them and know whether it's going to work. Like all of that just makes
mhm.
everyone's lives easier all around. And then you won't feel that like, oh my gosh, fall is coming and I don't have anybody on my calendar. What do I do? Like you don't have to sit around and wait for them to come to
Yeah,
you.
you can go out
I
and be
think a lot of times
proactive.
people will do that and they don't realize that like you can go get them.
Yeah,
And
and
it doesn't
that
have to
there
be
are
hard.
so many people that want it. So you need to go and figure out where they are and go and approach them and ask if they want it.
Yeah.
So I guess the last step, if we think about the cycle of doing like getting yourself ready, creating a calendar, sharing it with your audience, is what happens when the busy spell is done. Let's picture that you've gone through your fall and you decided you wanted 20 clients and you got 20 clients. You filled your calendar up. You did it all. You got them all their images out for Christmas. Then a really good thing is to think about like, how did this go? Was this, oh wow, this was much better than it was last year. There's something about this process that worked. Like assess it, or maybe it didn't. Maybe you didn't fill up your calendar, or maybe you spotted the way that another photographer in town did it and think, gosh, I wish I'd added that to my like
Yeah.
planning for the year. So,
Or maybe you just took too many and you know that next year you need to up your price so that you make as much money but don't have as many
yeah,
sessions.
so like look at how many hours you spent across the time, like and realistic, including your editing time and all the other times that are involved. And we've talked about this before in last Mondays, like the actual work that's involved in the workflow for one client. A lot of photographers, until you've started thinking about this, just don't know because you just all you know
Yeah.
for sure is the exact number of hours the photo shoot was, and beyond that, you've never really documented it. So a short window like this allows you, even if you can't judge by client, you could say, I worked full time, 10-hour days or whatever that was for 6 weeks straight. And for that,
Yeah.
I made X amount of money. Like, was it worth it? What was my hourly rate out of that?
Well, and like, so I am definitely like at fault here, but like I tend to not count my weekends.
hmm
Like, That's ridiculous, but it's true because I'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna get up like on Saturday morning at like 6 and I'll go out and work until like 9 and then I'll go hang with the kids after that. So I won't count that 3 hours like, oh, I didn't really work that much this week. It's like, well, yes, you did because you worked 3 hours on Saturday and then you worked 3 hours on Sunday. So like you worked an extra 6 hours just like without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So like that's that like being realistic of like, did you go back out to your computer after you put the kids to bed?
Hmm.
Like,
Did you do an
how
extra
late
hour
did you
here?
really stay up?
And all those, if you are still doing it the kind of old school way of having to phone and text back and forth, like that was just a 2 minute text. It was just a 5 minute phone call, or maybe it was 10 minutes because it's a friend. But like multiply that up by the number of clients who were involved and the number of times you had to do it, and it's probably more than you think. So,
Well, I think somebody said it to me one time where it was like, think about it in terms of like if you were an employee for your own business and you were wanting to get paid for every minute that you worked, you would clock all that hours for somebody else paying your bills, right? So do that for yourself of like
yeah.
clock in, clock out, and count up all of that time so that you can be realistic of like, if I was being paid by someone else, I would want to be paid for all this time. I don't want to like have a billable hour where I'm not actually making nearly as much as I think I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're doing kind of condensed hours over fall, maybe it's busier than normal. It's maybe a little easier to kind of, even if you don't take the time to document on and off for each client, you can probably say, I realistically worked all morning, every morning,
Yeah.
midweek, and I worked all Saturday afternoons, and I did this, and you can kind of add it up. Um, so then you can say, did I make as much money as I wanted? Did I do more clients than I expected? In which case, if I put my prices up next year, maybe my goal for next year is higher than it was this year.
Yeah.
And if I want to do that, maybe I need to invest in some things to help because once you see that putting some of that forward planning in place, it's not hard then to see the next bit of forward planning or automation or CRM or templates or whatever that might be that might make it easier for you to put that in place.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the more you can do it too, then you can recycle it
Hmm.
because it's like I have pretty much the same fall email that goes out every June or whenever it is that I send it. And it's like just changed just a teeny tiny bit. Like it's
Hmm.
pretty much the exact same thing though.
Yeah.
And so like once you put those things in play, like just rinse and repeat every year. And unless you want to change something about how you do
Right.
things, but like I rinse and repeat all the time because it works.
And
If
it's
I find,
easier to change one bit if actually all the rest of it is the same. So, like, if you're like, oh, I'm actually going to shift things now and not work weekends, then all that means is taking them off a calendar that's already in existence and changing maybe your email to let people know, by the way, this year I'm not working weekends. So if you want me, these are the hours I'll be available.
yeah,
Like that sounds like a major shift in your business, but if you already have a whole automated system up and running, it's not that hard to tweak it for it.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Anything else you want to add to this stuff?
I don't think so. I think if you're interested in this, as Paige was saying, like next month we're going to talk about mini sessions, which is another example of that consolidated doing the same thing on rinse and repeat. Therefore, it's really easy to see how well automation works in a short term, like fall, even though fall's 3 months, like in a
Yeah,
designated period. And the same with mini shoots. It's really easy to see how like how one kind of launch, like one service, you can see how well automation works because you're just doing the same thing for each client again and again. So if this
yep.
sounds interesting to you, make sure you check out next month's.
All right. We'll see you then.
Excellent. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.